The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Let me ask you something real quick. Technology business reviews are supposed to be the secret weapon for MSPs. So, why do so many MSPs avoid them, delay them, or struggle to make them stick? Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here with Everything MSP. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. Today, we're going to tackle a question that I hear constantly from MSPs of all sizes. Why are technology business reviews so hard? Because on paper, TBRs check every box. They strengthen the client relationships. They help you retain customers longer. They educate them on what's happening in the technology landscape. And yes, very importantly here, they create opportunities to grow revenue. But if that's all true, why do so many MSPs struggle to stay consistent? Why do their clients sometimes feel reluctant, uninterested, or even resistant to attending these meetings? This conversation is more important than ever because TBRs are the most important thing. And they're at the moment where MSPs shift from being seen as the technology support person to being seen as that trusted advisor. And the timing couldn't be more critical. Cyber threats are not slowing down, not at all. AI is showing up inside client environments, whether they're ready or not. Microsoft and cloud ecosystems continue to evolve at a pace that most business owners can't keep up with. Clients don't just need problems fixed anymore. They need help understanding what all of this means to their business. This is where TBRs should shine. But for many MSPs, something keeps getting in their way. So, to help unpack all of this, we are going to bring in our special guest. I am joined by Mr. Brian Doyle with vCIOToolbox. How you doing today, Brian?
Great, Dan. It's always great to join you. Thank you for having me.
It's awesome to have you here. And, Brian, you've spent years working with so many MSPs about strategic alignment, technology road mapping, business reviews. So, you've seen firsthand, especially as a former MSP, where these processes break down and what actually works. And I think that's what led you, from being an MSP to taking it to that next level of founding vCIOToolbox, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, as an MSP, we did technology business reviews, but we always came from the lens of the user sitting across the table. What do they want to gain from having this meeting with us, and what is most important to them? And one of the challenges I see, for MSPs is oftentimes, what do I want to bring to that meeting? How am I going to keep them interested, and how am I going to bring value, right? Because that's really what this is a value-driven process.
Absolutely. And from your perspective, what actually prevents MSPs from being consistent with delivering those TBRs?
So let's get real tactical here for a minute, Dan. The reality is usually the prep process, right? There's two key blockers, the prep process being a big one, and then getting in the door with the customer to do the QBR. Because oftentimes if the customer's happy with your technical service, they might tell you there's no need for a QBR or a TBR. And those are two of the biggest things that keep from getting a consistent flow and constantly staying in front of your customer. Now break them down, right? When it comes to the prep side, a lot of times it's because there's many competing needs for a few resources in your organization, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about the core of a QBR, it usually comes around, asset management and technical alignment reviews to generate a roadmap that we can then share with our customers. And where the breakdown sometimes comes from a resource perspective is having enough bandwidth from your engineer teams to support those non-technical account managers in building out the IT review. And this can become one of the blockers.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we're creatures of habit, when it comes to the mindset, a lot of times we look at the amount of work, that prep work. We know it's important, but it's like that prep work is so daunting, without the right tools that we procrastinate. It's how many people are wired. And, I guess taking that to next level, a lot of MSPs say that the problem is client resistance. What do you see as the biggest reasons clients do hesitate or push back on scheduling those TBRs?
Well, that's an easy twofold answer, right? First one is that they don't see the value. They just see the same data over and over, right? So, I'll
Mhm.
even go back to when I was an MSP. I brought a lot of different reports in, brought a little, nice, pretty reports with thud factor,
Yeah,
and the customer didn't know what to make heads or tails of it. And even if you walk them through and go, "This is where we stand," meeting number 2, they go, "Good, we're still, in good shape, or we've progressed." Meeting 3, it's kind of, "I've seen this before. What's in it for me? This is great, but there's nothing new to be said here."
right.
So we really need to be, looking at what is the messaging we want to bring to our customer when we go to a TBR. And really, it's got to be about their business outcomes, right? So we got to dig in a little bit there, but I'm sure we'll
Yep.
talk about that in a moment. The other thing that keeps them from joining us is along the way, they got very watered down and really became thinly veiled sales calls, right? MSPs definitely figured out that TBRs bring in net new revenue or net expansion revenue to their organization. And as such, they kind of went in roadmap first, roadmap fast mentality. And as a result, turned off some of their clients, or clients said, "Oh, great, they're coming in for that QBR. They're going to try to sell me something," right? So we
Right.
got to really change the tone of that as well. So those are two of the bigger drivers I see that, keep this from being a very streamlined process.
Well, it's funny when you bring up the FUD factor. I would also like to call it the thud factor of going back to the old days of going into your PSA and your RMM and printing every possible report. And that thud is that dropping, the thud hitting the desk of this massive report because it looks awesome, right? It's like, look at all this data. It's awesome.
Look at everything we did for you. And again, it's about them, not you. And that's
Right.
the biggest thing that you got to remember in a TBR event.
And and you mentioned business outcome. I purposely wore my new certified business geek hoodie today because we really do need to be business geeks, not geeks, but business geeks. And that's incorporating their business. It's focusing on the business outcome. And that is just so critical. And I know we'll talk more about that, but I had to slip that one in there. So,
No, it's true. I mean, look, I've said for a long time now, there's never been a better time for the MSP to be a trusted advisor because, cybersecurity threats are never going out of style. The emergence of AI, as you referenced before, but how to practically put it into a business environment and not fall for the hype is something that clients need guidance on.
yeah,
And then the continuing evolution of technology that moves at a pace that's faster than you and I could ever think of, right?
right.
That we need to be part management consultant and part technical consultant in this day and age for our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you compare a awesome, that hit it out of the park TBR to one that falls flat, what would you say are the missing ingredients that an MSP is overlooking between them?
I think the missing ingredient that I see most often is the amount of time you're spending with your customer learning about them. We understand what they have technologically, we understand what their technology needs are, and we understand what we want to provide them to better safeguard them. But sometimes we forget some of the simplest questions, which is, "Hey, Dan, you run a business. What are you trying to do to scale it? Or are you trying to scale it? Or are you
Right.
just trying to stay the same? What are the key initiatives you're going after and the obstacles you're facing on whatever you view to success in your world?"
Yeah.
And those are the things that really allow us to start understanding, hey, what are the outcomes this client's looking for? And where do the technologies that I support help fix that?
Yeah. I do recall, sitting across the table from a client and having questions that I wanted to ask, but I was afraid to ask because I felt like it's none of my business, but it is our business. And I slowly started asking those questions. And I was amazed where there was no pushback. They answered them. I would ask about, where your sales at? What is, how are you hitting your goals? Where are the bottlenecks in your business? What keeps you up at night? Like all those questions that we think about. Number one, we think, well, geez, those are non-technical questions. Why am I asking it? That's not my business. And then secondly, we almost feel like, well, that's private information. It's sensitive to them and we shouldn't be asking it. And it's, stay in our own lane. But that's what helps us. That's what helps us help them.
Well, I think you've always heard the statement, everything good comes out of the uncomfortable, right? So when we say
Yeah.
that, we're afraid to ask those things, it's part of our maturation process too. Look, we were all young executives at one point in time, and some of those questions were hard to ask. But what you find out is those executives who are seasoned and on the other side of the table, if you're asking them with the right context, they're more than happy to tell you. Dan, it's really important. Technology can be a really important driver to really make you move things faster and certainly help you get things done more efficiently. But for me to do that, I got to understand where are the problems? Like, what am I not seeing that's happening on your shop floor or with your
Right.
professional services team or your accountants out in the field, that maybe there's a technology solution that can support it, or maybe not, right? And if that's the case, I'll let you know that as well.
Yeah. What advice would you give to, let's face it, many MSP owners are very technical. They, like some have said, I'm in that accidental,
Entrepreneur.
entrepreneur, right? And it's not a bad thing, because all of a sudden you jump in and you're starting to learn things. But if you're not used to having those conversations, what advice would you give to an MSP to shift that conversation from, geek talk to business talk?
Well, I mean, it's having a game plan going in, right? Because anything that you try to shoot from the hip on when you go into a meeting like that is going to be challenging and feel more daunting. You got to know, what do I directly want to ask? In our platform, we got a very simple strategic planning process, and it's really focused around getting those business goals and business challenges, merging them with the IT goals, and then producing next steps for the customer. And if you kind of present that as part of the conversation, hey, Dan, I'm going to be asking you some questions. They might be a little different than the things that we've talked about in the past, but it's going to help me get more clarity into what you're trying to achieve. And if I understand that, then I can really see how to build you better business outcomes out of the projects we have. But more importantly, maybe disqualify some projects that we thought you needed, but really aren't going to push the needle for your business.
Mm-hmm.
And that always goes back to that concept, Dan. When you're in this trusted advisor role, you have to remember it's about their wins. Put yourself across the table and go, what would I want out of this? And then it becomes much easier to ask those questions from those people, because you're really doing it from a place of truly being a servant, right? And trying to help, and
Right.
not doing it from a place of greed, which sometimes, if you go roadmap first, can be, interpreted the wrong way in some of these TBRs.
Do you think having those business conversations, especially for somebody that is more technical and feels as if they are that accidental entrepreneur, that the imposter syndrome comes into play too much?
Imposter syndrome lives in all of us, right?
Yeah.
And I can say, if you don't practice what you preach a little bit and, work on this a little bit, and have a game plan going into a customer, you're going to feel that imposter syndrome right away. And you're probably going to feel it the first few times that you do it. I know the first few times you do anything new, right? First time you and I got on a stage and had to talk to a group, we're like, why are 50 people in the room sitting looking up at me, right?
Right.
There's all of that goes with it, but you got to get comfortable with yourself really quick and say, I always go back to the courtroom. The subject matter expert just needs to know more than everybody else in that courtroom to be the subject matter expert on whatever topic it is. Doesn't mean they have to be the foremost authority out in the marketplace on it. They just need to know more than everybody else in the room and have a background in it, right? So we're the same here.
Yeah.
We might be technologists, that accidental entrepreneur, but we do run a business. And we do understand P&Ls. And we do understand that, we need business processes that we have to take care of in our business are probably shared by some of our clients as well. So if we go in with a little bit more of that, I feel confident because I deal with this every day. I can go ask those questions. Now let's fast forward to the account manager who's younger in their career, maybe hasn't done it. Well, this is your opportunity to step up. That person across the table is looking to say, well, what can this person bring a value to me? And if you start asking business minded questions and not just tech questions, you're going to actually, even if they're the wrong questions, you're going to gain more authority with that person sitting across the table because they're like, the way they're going to look at it is, hey, this guy gets me.
Exactly. And, I think, when you take a look at vCIOToolbox, you guys have invested heavily into automation over the last year, and you're introducing some intelligent business review components. So what does it actually consist of? And can you give us some background as far as, how that helps MSPs overcome those blockers?
Yeah, so let's go back to the first blocker we talked about, which is getting the MSP prep done, right? The biggest challenge is getting on engineer calendars in many of the MSP organizations we work with. These guys are already being pulled and stretched, and now they have to do an assessment. And let's be honest, it's not their favorite work to do either. Now it's,
Right.
Confirm what's out there is out there kind of work, right? But, one of the things that we've done on vCIOToolbox over the last, 14, 18 months is really expand out our integration base. So we have more and more data coming into the system. And we started that journey to ensure that we can get to the point where we're just getting to right now today, which is being able to kind of automate and build a virtual TAM process within our platform. We've developed our LLM to interpret the data that's coming in, understand the questions that are being asked, and basically do the virtual TAM work on the things that are connected to the system. So now we're taking what used to be, especially in a baseline event, a 2, 3, maybe even 4-hour process, and literally dropping it down to minutes inside the platform. Now, that said, it doesn't answer every question you might have in an assessment. There might be some questions you need to do manually on top of that, but that's usually around people and process, which can't be done by the tools that we're integrating. But we're really trying to make sure that we bring the information in, synthesize it, and present you with responses that fill out your assessment and present you with recommendations and suggestions that you can convert into tickets and opportunities to build that roadmap in a very quick, very efficient manner and reduce some of that load on your technical teams that could prevent you from seeing customers.
That's huge. And, I think one most important thing here, which is addressing exactly what you guys have, the reason that you put this in place, I think, is that what keeps MSPs from, doing these TBRs isn't necessarily the intent, it's the struggle with that execution.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I've found when a customer has left vCIOToolbox, it's not often to another competitor, it's to putting down the whole process altogether.
Oh, wow.
And,
Yeah.
it's just the old, hey, we just haven't had time to take this on. We want to do it. Many of them are like, they'll revisit me again. And certainly many have come back like a year or two later when they've solidified another process, but they've missed the benefit there. And we sat as an organization and said, we've got to make this easier for these teams to get out there and stay engaged with their customers. Because certainly the meeting itself is the easy part. It's getting ready for the meeting, having good information to present and a story to tell. And that's really what, the platform does for you.
Yeah. And that is a significant component in, what makes or breaks you. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you can, leverage some intelligent automation in, being able to deliver some high quality results, it has such a huge impact because, when this TBRs are, and the mindset is it's too technical, it's too manual, it's time consuming. Ultimately, it just gets deprioritized. And, so as we wrap things up here, for anybody that, wants to learn more about vCIOToolbox, or, if you're evaluating some type of a QBR solution, as you're kicking off and beginning 2026, you guys are offering a demo of the platform. Can you share a little bit of information about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can always come get a demo, see what the system's all about, but we do offer a trial of the system as well. And in that trial, you get full access to all modules, which also includes our Cybrance GRC side of the platform. I know our focus today is on TBR, but the platform is a unified advisory platform that allows you to kind of take two tools and consolidate it into one. But the real reality is you can get a trial of the system, connect your integrations, run the intelligent business review process, and see the output. And what you'll see is that you can get that core data that you need to then intelligently, sculpt your roadmap and tie it and work with the customer to building that strategic plan so you can get to that outcomes-based conversation quarter to quarter that they require.
Excellent. And, if you decide to move forward, you guys have a very awesome offer, and I appreciate this. If you let, the team at vCIOToolbox know that you heard it here on Everything MSP, you'll get a 10% discount on your subscription for life. Is that correct?
That is correct. Just tell us that you came from Everything MSP, and we will be happy to add to the quote after our demo and show you that, give you 10% off. And we honor that for as long as you stay a subscriber with us.
That is awesome. Thank you. And I want to wrap this up a little bit. Your clients aren't thinking about AI models. They're not thinking about cybersecurity frameworks, Microsoft licensing changes. They're thinking about the risk. They're thinking about growth, and they're thinking about staying competitive. And those technology business reviews are ultimately how you connect technology to those outcomes, those business outcomes. And when you get it right, everything else in the relationship changes. And with that being said, do you have a final thought?
Yeah, I mean, Dan, you're spot on. People buy things for three reasons: save money, make money, or mitigate risk. And TBRs are meant to show all three of those things when appropriately framed in sharing a roadmap with the customer. But more importantly, like any relationship, half the battle's showing up. And if you can't get on a consistent timeline of showing up with your customer, those QBRs are going to get put in the back burner. And like any relationship, it runs the risk of deteriorating just because the care and feeding isn't there. So whether you use vCIOToolbox, one of my competitors, or doing it with spreadsheets, just make sure you're doing it. Get out and see your customers, listen to what they're looking to get done, and make sure that when you're presenting opportunities to them, they know what the outcomes are going to be so they can make that strong decision about go with you and feel really good about the relationship.
Awesome. Brian, thank you for being here today. I greatly appreciate it. And for everybody out there listening, thank you so much for being here. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.